Breakdancers in South Africa competed for the honor of representing South Africa at the World Final, which will take place in Poland in November. 20 finalists battled it out for the coveted prize, where B-girl Courtnaé and B-boy Benny reigned supreme and were titled the 2021 South African winners. Now tonight we will be chatting to one of the winners representing for the ladies. Good evening, Courtnaé, and welcome to Sport on the Full View.
How's it going? Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Now, Courtnaé, tell us more about your journey into becoming a breakdancer. How did it all start for you?
Well, I grew up in a small community in Durban called Red Hill, and I started dancing quite late, or what's considered late for a dancer. So around, I'd say 11 or 12, I fell into dance by chance, really. And once I got into it, I just kind of went head first, and slowly but surely I started to kind of find my style and the things I liked. And for me, it was always, you know, if you're watching a music video or a movie, it's always the guys that get to do all the cool stuff, you know, the backflips and whatever else. And for me, I couldn't understand why I couldn't do that either, you know. And just that's how the passion really grew, is watching everything happening around me, mostly on TV, and just imitating and mimicking as best as I can, you know. Then I moved to Joburg at 21, and the rest is kind of history. And yeah, I am now.
Such a beautiful story. Now tell us more about this competition that has given you a spot in the World Finals in Poland. How was that process for you, and what would you say are some of the biggest challenges you faced during that competition?
I would say the biggest challenge was probably the fact that it was the first time for me, so I had no point of reference whatsoever. The first BC one for females was only 2 years ago, and I was out of the country at the time. So, and then last year I was ready for it, and we went into lockdown literally a week before the actual competition. So I was kind of preparing for something that I had no idea, you know, what it is I needed to do in order to win this thing, you know. But that being said, I think the experience was amazing. I made sure that I was ready and prepared. And then I just got there and tried to have as much fun as I can, you know. As much as it's a competition, at the end of the day, it's still dance. So I tried to make sure that I was enjoying myself, but it's a hell of a lot of pressure, you know. It's not just taxing physically, it's probably one of the most physical dance styles, but just emotionally and mentally, you know. Everything was online, it was streamed live across the world, you know, and I think it was the first time that the world was watching the BC one the way that it was, you know, because everybody's sitting at home. So it's also that pressure of knowing that there's so many other people that are watching you and judging you, you know. But other than that, it was great, and it feels like the start of something new.
Now, you've spoken a little about the physical demands as well as the emotional ones. From a physical perspective, how do you then prepare yourself for competition, and what does that training regime look like for you?
Sure, it's quite an intense one. I think people always ask, like, where do you start? You know, and for me, it's like everything right at the beginning. If you want to learn how to run, you know, you got to start walking. And with that, it's not, you don't just get up and start walking. There's so much that happens. If you think of a baby, you know, they're in that little chair, they start holding things, they start to shuffle. And that's how the training really goes. You've got to build up to something. And I would say, maybe like a month before competition, it's at least 2 to 3 hours of training a day. It might not be dancing, but for me, that's conditioning, it's boxing, you know, all these things that make my body stronger. And then a week before, or at least 3 days before, for me, the rest needs to begin, you know, so that my body can heal, and then I'm not getting onto stage tired and fatigued. Because there's so much else going on in your mind, you know, your body at least needs to be performing at its best. So lots of training, and then maybe just as much rest as possible.
Okay, so now, Courtnaé, just looking at you and being a B-girl, you know, I think breakdancing is a sport that has grown considerably in the South African context. But would you say it's now at the point where it's more than just a passion sport, and it's something that you can pursue from a financial gain perspective?
Yeah, definitely. You know, I think for me, I've always been lucky in a sense that I've lived off dance. I've thrived off dance for as soon as I got out of school. You know, I've never had an actual job besides maybe one time. I think I was working at a mall, you know, December holidays while I was at school. But other than that, I've lived purely off dance. And I think that comes from just trying to make sure that I make the best decisions as possible. I'm not taking every job. I'm not trying to do what everybody else is doing. And that's what you really have to do. So being a beagle, specifically in this country, is a very lonely road. But if you play your cards right, it becomes a niche, and it becomes something that people can only find when they come to you. So we're still on the up and up. I mean, it's been added to the 2024 Olympics. So no longer are we just random breakdancers, we could potentially be these Olympians, which is also just opening doors for more people, because now you can train kids, to go to the Olympics and there's so many different avenues, because I think the longer we wait for dance to be kind of supported the way that it is internationally from a government standpoint, we're just going to, drive ourselves into the ground. So it's great that these opportunities are coming up. And I think dance is slowly but surely becoming a fully fledged, sustainable career, as opposed to, dance is always at the bottom of the barrel.
Certainly. And what do you say to young girls that look up to you and want to become B-girls? And there's just a lot of competition for women out there, always being compared to men in the sport. What would you say to inspire a young future world final Courtnaé sitting somewhere at home right now?
I would say that it's all a scam, I think we've been conditioned to think that we're not able to achieve, even if you put us up against men. They've had a nice little lead in a lot of areas in life, and that's why they're generally better, to be completely honest. But for me, the more I tried and the more I started achieving, I realized all the limitations that were placed on me throughout my life were actually just a scam. When I entered the Joburg qualifier, I had an automatic entry into the South African event, because there were no beagles for me to compete against. So I entered the B-boy category anyway, and I made it to the semis, and in my mind, I entered just for the heck of it, I didn't really expect to get too far. And getting to the semis tells me, okay, cool. So if I put in a little bit of more work, then I actually wouldn't even need a beagle category, So to any young little girl sitting there, I would just say, stop listening to all the noise, and you'll definitely go as far as you want to take it.
And finally, Courtnaé, as we wrap up our discussion with you, just heading into those world finals in November in Poland, what other competitions do you have building up to that?
So right now, I'm taking a bit of a break. And when I say a break, I mean like a week and a half, just to focus a little bit on my music. I've got another single coming out. I'm shooting a music video this week. And then I think leading up to Poland, I've got one competition in Berlin, which I've been selected as the African rep. We had a competition last year and I was the one selected. So I go to Berlin, I think that's in August. Prior to that, I think there's something in China in October. And then, straight to world finals. I tried to not do too many things at once, but the way the climate is set up now, there's so many competitions popping up, whether it's online or you get to travel. So I'm in that space now, so I'm trying to just keep my head in the game and not take too much time off.
Courtnaé, thank you so much for talking to us. Good luck with your single and, of course, good luck with the World Finals in Poland later this year.